Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the man you love, the man you share your bed, dreams, and future with, used your hard-earned savings to fund his ex-girlfriend's dream. Sounds unreal, right? But that's exactly what happened to me. Stay with me till the end, because what started as heartbreak turned into a lesson I'll never forget. My name is Ariel Monroe. I'm 32, a nurse living in Atlanta, and for 3 years, I thought I was living a fairy tale marriage. My husband, Malcolm Reeves, was the kind of man people called a catch. He was handsome, confident, and had this calm way of making me believe everything would always be okay. We met at a charity event, and from that moment, it felt like fate. We fell in love fast, married after a year, and started planning for our dream home. Every paycheck I got, I tucked a little away into our joint savings. Malcolm said we'd use it to renovate once his next big real estate deal closed. I believed him. Life with Malcolm felt safe, until the day it didn't. It started small. I logged into our bank account one morning before work, just to double-check a few bills. That's when I noticed it, $52,000 gone. Not withdrawn all at once, but in chunks over a few months. At first, I told myself it had to be a mix-up, or maybe something to do with Malcolm's business expenses. He always handled some of his clients' payments through that account, so I brushed it off. But the uneasy feeling in my chest wouldn't fade. That night, I tried to act normal. I cooked his favorite, shrimp pasta, and waited until after dinner to ask about the missing money. I tried to sound casual, like I wasn't accusing him of anything. He smiled, leaned back in his chair, and told me not to worry. Said it was for an investment he was working on, something big that would pay off soon. His confidence was disarming. I wanted to believe him, so I did. For a while. But in the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He started getting mysterious calls, stepping outside to talk. He'd close his laptop fast whenever I walked into the room. And then there was the new watch, sleek, expensive, definitely not part of our renovation budget. I mentioned it to my best friend, Kiona, who's a paralegal and never afraid to speak the truth. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Ariel, don't ignore your gut. Check everything." I didn't want to believe Malcolm could ever betray me. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. So that night, after he fell asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling for hours, feeling the walls of my perfect life start to crack. I didn't know it yet, but I was standing at the edge of the truth. And it was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about love. That night, I sat across from Malcolm at the dinner table, my heart racing like I was about to break bad news to a stranger. The missing $52,000 had been haunting me for days, and pretending everything was fine was eating me alive. I waited until he finished his meal, then took a slow breath and said softly, "Hey, baby, I was checking our account earlier, and I noticed some big transfers. Is everything okay?" He didn't even look surprised. He leaned back, wiped his mouth, and smiled like he had been expecting the question. "Oh, that? Don't worry about it, Ari. It's for an investment I'm working on. A real estate thing with a few partners. I'll explain more once it's settled." His voice was calm, too calm. Something in me wanted to believe him. He sounded so sure, so smooth, like he had it all under control. But his eyes didn't match his tone. They darted away for half a second, the kind of flicker you'd miss if you weren't watching closely. I caught it, and my stomach tightened. Still, I nodded and said, "All right, I trust you." And I meant it, or maybe I wanted to mean it. Over the next few days, Malcolm acted completely normal. He kissed me goodbye every morning, texted me, "I love you," during lunch breaks, and came home late claiming client dinners. But something was off. I noticed he started hiding his phone screen whenever I walked into the room. Once, he closed his laptop so fast it made a soft thud against the desk. When I asked what he was working on, he just said, "Confidential stuff, babe. You wouldn't understand the business side." Then came the watch. A silver luxury brand, the kind that costs more than my monthly paycheck. He said it was a gift from a client. I smiled and said it looked nice, but inside I was screaming. He'd never owned anything that flashy before. I finally told Kiona, my best friend since college. She's smart, sharp, and never sugarcoats anything. We were sitting in her car during our lunch break when I spilled everything. The missing money, the vague investment, the new watch. She listened quietly, then looked at me with that serious expression she always gets before she drops the truth. "Ariel, don't ignore your instincts. Start keeping track of things. Don't confront him again yet, just watch." Her words stuck in my head. That night, As Malcolm laughed at something on his phone and quickly put it face down when I walked by, I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to ask him again, to scream, to demand the truth, but I stayed silent. I smiled, kissed him goodnight, and lay awake beside him, staring into the dark. Something was wrong. I didn't know what, but my heart knew he had lied. The man who once made me feel safe was suddenly a stranger, and I couldn't tell if I was more scared of losing him or finding out who he really was. One quiet Sunday afternoon, while Malcolm was out for another one of his so-called client meetings, I sat on the couch with my laptop. My hands hovered over the keyboard for a long time before I finally opened our joint bank account again. I told myself I was only checking for peace of mind, but deep down, I knew I was chasing the truth I didn't want to find. The numbers glared back at me, thousands gone. I scrolled slowly, line by line, through the statements I'd already memorized. Then my eyes froze. The name attached to several transfers was the same, Tanya Laress. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like the air had been punched out of me. Tanya Laress. The name wasn't just familiar, it was haunting. She was the ex-girlfriend Malcolm had once mentioned in passing, back when we were still dating. The one he said taught him what kind of woman not to trust. He had called her a mistake. I remembered the way his tone hardened when he talked about her, how he said she was manipulative, greedy, and used him for money when they were younger. And now, he was sending her thousands of dollars. My mind spun in circles trying to make sense of it. I clicked on the transaction details again, hoping I was seeing it wrong, but there it was. Her full name, her business account, the steady stream of transfers that matched every missing chunk of our savings. My hands started shaking. I closed the laptop, then opened it again, as if the screen would change. I couldn't sit still. My thoughts raced between disbelief and anger. What kind of investment was this? Why would he lie to me? I opened a new browser tab and typed her name into the search bar. Within seconds, her face appeared, smiling, confident, standing in front of a fancy new boutique with a big gold sign above it. Tanya Laress Design Studio. The caption on her post read, "New beginnings, same dream. Thank you to everyone who believed in me." The post was dated just 2 weeks after the first large transfer from our account. My heart sank as I scrolled through the photos. There she was cutting the ribbon, holding champagne, surrounded by guests. And standing a few feet behind her, in one of the photos someone had tagged, was Malcolm. My husband. My hands went cold. I stared at that picture for a long time. The man I loved, the man I shared my home and heart with, standing there like a proud investor in another woman's dream, using my money. Our money. Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. The shock began to fade, replaced by something colder, clarity. He hadn't made a business investment. He had funded his ex's comeback. I shut the laptop slowly, my reflection staring back from the dark screen. The woman looking back at me wasn't naive anymore. She was angry, and she was done being blind. I sat in the dark of our bedroom, staring at the glow of my phone's screen, my whole body trembling. The photo of Malcolm standing behind Tanya at her boutique launch was burned into my mind. My hands shook so badly I had to set the phone down. My chest felt heavy, like someone was sitting on it. The man who kissed my forehead every morning before work, the man who promised me forever, had taken my money to build another woman's dream. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Every memory of us began replaying in my head like a cruel movie. Our anniversary dinners, those long drives with the windows down, the nights we stayed up laughing over silly movies. It all felt fake now. How could he hold me and lie so easily? How could he smile while building a life with me and secretly fund hers? I curled up on the bed, clutching my pillow, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. I felt sick. Betrayal isn't just pain, it's confusion, it's disbelief. I kept asking myself why. What did she have that I didn't? Why would he risk everything for a woman he once called a mistake? When I finally called Kiona, I couldn't even speak at first. She just listened to me cry until I managed to whisper, "It's her, Kiona. Tanya. He's been sending her money." My money. Kiona went silent, and then her voice turned sharp, calm, and steady. "Ariel, listen to me. Don't confront him yet. Not until you have everything you need. Let him hang himself with his own rope." Her words hit hard, but they made sense. I wiped my tears and nodded even though she couldn't see me. I had spent enough time being blindsided. Now I needed to be smart. Over the next few days, I became someone else, quiet, observant, patient. I smiled when Malcolm came home late. I asked no questions, made his dinner, and pretended everything was fine. But when he fell asleep, I worked in silence. I pulled up our bank records, downloaded statements, screenshotted every transfer. I even started recording short voice memos of his excuses when I asked about his late meetings. The more I uncovered, the more the puzzle fit together. Emails from him to Tanya, messages full of promises about her new store, about how he was making it up to her. Each line felt like a knife, but I saved every word. Kiona helped me organize it all, labeling each piece of evidence neatly in a folder she titled Truth. It was almost ironic. Malcolm thought he was clever, hiding behind charm and confidence, but I was now one step ahead. One night, as I watched him sleeping peacefully beside me, I whispered to myself, "You lied to the wrong woman." Because this time, I wasn't going to cry or beg for answers. I was going to make sure his truth destroyed him in the same way his betrayal had destroyed me. When Kiona texted, "He's planning something big for your anniversary," my stomach dropped the way it does before a fall. I hadn't expected Malcolm to throw a party, especially not at Maison Leclerc, the kind of restaurant that smells like money and chandeliers. He'd invited both our parents, his sister, a few close friends, and some clients. Perfect stage. My hands went cold thinking about him smiling under those lights while lying to everyone at our table. Kiona came over that evening with a calm look I'd learned to trust. She carried a folder, a quiet battery of plans. We sat at my kitchen island with wine we didn't touch, and she spread everything out, printed bank statements, transaction details, screenshots of messages, and photos from Tanya's boutique opening. Seeing the evidence in print made the betrayal feel both smaller and heavier at once. Each paper was a weight I wanted to drop in his lap. We made a list. Who would be there? Where he might sit? How the restaurant's private room worked. Maison Leclerc had a small room in the back with its own screen and projector. It was private. It was safe for secrets. It was the exact place I envisioned, turning his arrogance into silence. Kiona's eyes were steady as she said, "We'll do it quietly. No shouting, no scene for the cameras. You want them to see the truth and feel it." I learned how he'd plan the night. A toast about trust, a small speech about future plans, maybe an announcement about a new project to get everyone excited. He liked drama. He liked being the center. That made him easy to trap. Kiona printed copies of the bank transfers and laid them beside photos of Tanya cutting the ribbon at her new boutique. Photos that matched the dates of the withdrawals. She also had printed emails where Malcolm called Tanya my real partner and promised to help rebuild her. The words made my mouth taste like iron. We rehearsed logistics like thieves planning a heist. Kiona would sit with her phone on the table, ready to play the evidence on the restaurant's screen when I signaled. I would wear the dress Malcolm loved. Partly because I wanted him to remember who he was betraying, and partly because I wanted to look calm when he tried to smile his way out. We decided not to call anyone ahead. The truth would land purer if it hit them in the moment. No rumors. No whispers. Just the cold, clear facts laid out in front of people who trusted him. That week I practiced being normal. I laughed at his jokes. I held his hand at the grocery store and let him think I was clueless. Inside, I made lists, what to say, how to keep my voice steady. Kiona labeled every file with dates and explanations. She even added a short timeline, so anyone could follow the money trail without reading every line. On the morning of the dinner, I slid the folder into my clutch like a secret weapon. I felt strange, both frightened and relieved. The evidence was heavy in my bag, but lighter than the secret that had been sitting in my chest for weeks. That night at Maison Leclerc, under the warm lights and soft music, I would put the papers where everyone could see them. I told myself to breathe, to stay quiet until the right moment. I put on my smile, and for the first time since I'd found the transfers, I felt a small, steady spark of control. The restaurant glowed in soft gold light, every table sparkling under crystal chandeliers. Waiters moved quietly, their polished shoes gliding across the marble floor. Malcolm had chosen Maison Leclerc well. It was the kind of place where everything looked perfect, just like the image he loved to project. He stood near the center of the private dining room, greeting guests with that smooth charm everyone admired. Our parents were there, his sister, my best friend Kiona, sitting quietly at the end of the table. Everyone was laughing, sipping wine, talking about how beautiful the evening felt. I smiled too, even though my hands trembled beneath the tablecloth. My heart kept an even, careful beat as I looked around the room. The smell of roasted duck and buttered garlic filled the air, and I focused on it just to stop myself from thinking about what I was about to do. Malcolm sat beside me, his arm resting behind my chair. He looked confident, his suit crisp, his gold watch catching the candlelight. He leaned in and whispered, "You look beautiful tonight, baby. This is our night." I smiled and said softly, "I know." He clinked his glass with a fork to get everyone's attention, his voice rich and smooth. "Tonight's about appreciation," he began. 3 years of marriage to the most patient, supportive woman I know. Ariel has been my rock, my peace, and the reason I wake up every morning ready to do better. We've built something strong, built on trust, understanding, and partnership. The word trust almost made me laugh, but I held it in. Everyone smiled at us, toasting with glasses of red wine. My parents beamed with pride. His mother had tears in her eyes. It all felt so perfect, so staged. Then the door opened. The moment felt slow, like time itself had decided to pause. Tanya Laress walked in, elegant in a sleek black dress, her hair pinned up, carrying a small purse that probably cost as much as a car payment. Malcolm froze. Just for a second, but it was enough for me to see it. That brief flicker of panic in his eyes. He recovered quickly, forcing a smile. "Oh, everyone, this is Tanya," he said, clearing his throat. "She's a friend of mine. I invited her tonight to talk about a business project." The table went quiet for half a beat before my mother smiled politely. I turned to Tanya, keeping my expression warm and calm. "Welcome, Tanya," I said sweetly. "So nice to finally meet you. Malcolm's mentioned your work before. Please join us." Kiona glanced at me from across the table, a knowing look flickering in her eyes. I gave her the smallest nod. Tanya smiled back, but her hands trembled slightly as she took a seat near Malcolm. He looked uncomfortable, tugging at his collar, trying to keep the conversation moving. I reached for my wine glass, took a slow sip, and kept my eyes on him. The tension under the table was electric. He thought he was still in control. But I knew something he didn't, that the real show hadn't even begun yet. The waiter had just placed the last plate of chocolate soufflé on the table when Ariel slowly rose from her chair. The soft clink of glasses quieted, and all eyes turned toward her. Her hands didn't tremble this time. She looked serene, almost graceful, as the golden light from the chandeliers framed her calm smile. "I just wanted to say a few words," she began softly. "Tonight marks our 5th anniversary. 5 years of love, sacrifice, and trust." Malcolm smiled beside her, oblivious, raising his glass slightly in acknowledgement. But Ariel's next words froze him mid-sip. "Trust," she repeated, her voice steady, "is something I believed we shared, until I learned that the man I married used it as a weapon." A hush fell. The restaurant's elegant hum stilled. Ariel pressed a button on the small remote in her hand, and behind her, the restaurant's private projection screen flickered to life. The first image appeared, a bank transfer confirmation. $12,000 to a business account under the name Tanya's Luxe Boutique. The next slide came. Another $15,000. Then another. Then a total $52,000, circled in red. Gasps rippled through the room. Malcolm's mother covered her mouth. Ariel's father frowned, his jaw tightening. Malcolm rose halfway from his chair. "Ariel, what is this? You're misunderstanding." "Oh, am I?" she said sharply, cutting him off. Her tone was cold now, razor-edged but calm. She clicked again. The next image appeared. Tanya at her boutique's ribbon-cutting ceremony, wearing a champagne-colored dress. The banner behind her read, "Funded by Love, Built with Vision." Ariel turned back toward the guests. "That love and vision," she said slowly, "came from my account. Every dollar meant for our home, for our future, sent to her." The screen changed again, this time to a string of emails. Malcolm's words scrolled across the display. "You're my real partner, Tanya. Ariel will never understand us." Tanya's face drained of color. The spoon in her hand fell, clattering against her plate. "Ariel, please, don't." Ariel's voice cracked just once. "You sat in my living room, drank my wine, called me sis. All while planning this with him." Malcolm stepped closer, desperate now. "It wasn't like that, I was just helping." "Helping?" Ariel shot back. "Helping her build her dream with my life savings?" Her father slammed his palm on the table. "You're a con artist, Malcolm. I raised my daughter better than to be fooled by a thief in a suit." Malcolm's mother began to cry, whispering, "Oh my God, my son." The room buzzed with whispers, shame, disbelief. Tanya stood abruptly and stumbled out, her heels clicking like gunshots on marble. Ariel took one deep breath, then set the remote down. "Thank you all for coming," she said softly. "The celebration is over." She walked out of Maison Leclerc with her head high, leaving Malcolm frozen amid the ruins of his lies. Malcolm's chair screeched against the marble floor as he scrambled to his feet. His face was pale, his tie slightly undone, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Ariel, please," he said, his voice trembling as he reached for her arm. "Not here. Can we please talk in private?" Ariel stepped back, her expression calm but unreadable. "Privacy?" she said quietly, her voice slicing through the murmurs in the room. "You lost the right to that when you made my bank account your playground." Around them, the guests sat frozen in disbelief. Malcolm's mother was whispering prayers under her breath. Ariel's father looked like he could break the man in half if given the chance. Tanya, her face flushed red with humiliation, stood abruptly. "You said it was your money, Malcolm," she shouted, voice trembling. "You said your wife knew about it." Malcolm's head jerked toward her. "Tanya, stop, please, not now." But she wasn't listening. She pointed a shaking finger at him, her eyes glassy with tears. "You told me she didn't care about you anymore. That she agreed to help because you wanted to build something together." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ariel didn't even blink. She simply looked at Tanya and said, "Thank you for the confirmation." Tanya swallowed hard, realizing how utterly exposed she was. The whispers grew louder, phones discreetly raised to record the scene. She grabbed her clutch, muttered something under her breath, and hurried out of the restaurant, her heels echoing down the marble hallway until the doors slammed behind her. Malcolm turned back to Ariel, desperate now. "Listen to me, please. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I was just trying to help her get on her feet. That's all. I was going to pay it back, every dollar." Ariel looked at him, her eyes steady and tired. Slowly, deliberately, she slid her wedding ring off her finger. The gold glimmered under the chandelier light as she set it gently on the table between them. "You funded your ex's dream," she said softly, "with your wife's future." She paused, letting the words sink in. "I hope she was worth the price." Malcolm reached out, but she stepped back again. His hand hovered in the air, empty. Her father rose, placing a protective arm around her shoulders as she turned to leave. Malcolm's mother sobbed quietly, covering her face. The once celebratory restaurant now felt like a courtroom. Malcolm stood alone in the middle of it, his lies scattered like shattered glass around him, the weight of his actions pressing down like a storm he couldn't escape. Ariel didn't look back as she walked toward the exit, her heels steady and her head held high. Behind her, Malcolm fell into his chair, burying his face in his hands. The only sound left in the room was the soft clink of the wedding ring rolling slightly on the table, then stopping, cold and final. The fallout was swift and merciless. Within 48 hours of that unforgettable dinner, the story spread like wildfire across social media. Someone had filmed everything. The moment Ariel projected the receipts, Tanya's shocked face, Malcolm's pleading, and the quiet power in Ariel's final words. The video went viral on local business forums, then national gossip pages. By Monday morning, Malcolm's company's name had become synonymous with deceit. Clients began pulling out one by one. Longtime investors demanded accountability, and when Malcolm couldn't provide answers, they withdrew their funds without hesitation. His business email was flooded with cancellation notices. The man who once bragged about being a visionary entrepreneur now found himself sitting alone in an empty office, surrounded by silence and unpaid bills. His family refused to speak to him. His mother, embarrassed and heartbroken, told him she couldn't face her friends at church. His father returned a check Malcolm had given him months ago, muttering, "We don't take stolen money." Even his younger brother, his biggest supporter, blocked his number. Meanwhile, Tanya's boutique, the one built with Ariel's money, began to crumble too. Once hailed as a fresh luxury brand, it now faced whispers of fraud and scandal. Her investors withdrew overnight, terrified of legal trouble. Photos surfaced online showing Tanya at the same restaurant that night, her face pale under the golden lights, confirming every rumor. Within weeks, her boutique shut down, her dream dissolving in the same shame she helped create. Ariel, though still healing, didn't hide. With Kiona's legal expertise, she filed a civil case for restitution and fraud. The evidence, every email, every transaction, every lie was airtight. The judge ruled in her favor, awarding her partial recovery of the $52,000 and authorizing liquidation of shared assets. When the settlement check arrived, Ariel didn't cry. She didn't gloat either. She drove to their former home, a place once filled with laughter and empty promises, and walked through it one last time. The faint scent of Malcolm's cologne still lingered on the curtains. She placed her hand on the wall, whispered a quiet goodbye, and sold the property the next week. Instead of rebuilding her old life, she built a new one. Ariel donated a significant portion of her settlement to a women's financial empowerment charity, one that helped wives and single mothers learn how to manage money independently. She even volunteered there, teaching women how to recognize financial manipulation before it destroyed them. Every step she took away from Malcolm's shadow made her stronger. Her pain became her purpose, her silence transformed into advocacy. She was no longer the woman who second-guessed herself, or the one who waited for explanations. She was the woman who stood in truth, unbroken, unashamed, and unstoppable. And though the scars of betrayal would always exist, they no longer defined her. They reminded her that she had survived the fire and rebuilt herself from its ashes. It took months for life to feel normal again, but slowly, piece by piece, Ariel began to rebuild. The nights of crying into her pillow grew fewer, replaced by quiet evenings filled with music and candles instead of regret. Her new apartment wasn't as big as the old house, but it was hers, every corner painted in soft tones of peace and independence. The first night she moved in, she sat on the floor with takeout food, looked around at the empty walls, and whispered, "I'm free." Betrayal, she learned, doesn't destroy you. It unmasks the people who never deserved a place in your story. Malcolm's lies had crushed her once, but they also pushed her to find strength she never knew she had. She stopped questioning why it happened and started asking what she could build from the ruins. Kiona never left her side. Her friend became her rock, her cheerleader, and sometimes her second brain when Ariel doubted herself. One night, over tea, Kiona said, "You know what you should do? Start something of your own. You've always talked about skincare and natural products. Turn your pain into something beautiful." The idea lit something in Ariel. Within weeks, she was testing homemade formulas in her kitchen, mixing oils, packaging creams, designing labels. She poured every ounce of herself into the project, just like she had once poured trust into Malcolm. Only this time, the outcome was pure, real, and entirely hers. She named her brand Ari and Glow. It wasn't just skincare, it was a statement. A reminder that even after darkness, a woman can still shine. The first batch sold out within days after she shared it on social media. Reviews flooded in from women who said her story inspired them to take back control of their lives. For the first time in years, Ariel woke up excited for the day instead of dreading it. Every success, no matter how small, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. She could finally smile without pretending. She could finally breathe without fear. The woman who once begged for honesty had now built a business rooted in it. Sometimes she'd still hear Malcolm's name whispered in passing. People saying how far he'd fallen, how no one trusted him anymore. But she didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The universe had already written the ending for her. One evening, she stood in front of her mirror, her reflection glowing under the soft light, and said quietly, "He stole my savings, but I took back my power." A soft smile touched her lips as she added, "And I made sure everyone saw the truth." Ariel didn't just survive, she transformed. What began as heartbreak became her rebirth. She had walked through betrayal and come out radiant. Proof that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply becoming everything they said you never could be. Do you think Ariel did the right thing by exposing Malcolm in front of everyone? Or should she have handled it privately? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.